So the big question is, when will you receive a $2,000 or even $1,400 stimulus check? Well, in this video, I'll be answering this question. We all know that the American Rescue Plan was signed into law back in March of last year, and since then, hundreds of thousands of payments have been sent out, amounting to nearly $380 billion. That's including the extra plus of payments that are being sent out right now. I know that there are millions of Americans that are anxiously waiting for President Biden and Congress to announce a fourth stimulus check. That's following the past 3 round stimulus checks that brought a cash boost to medium income and low income families all across the nation. Many people are also worried about inflation. Inflation rose at the fastest pace in nearly 4 decades in December, as rapid price gains fueled consumer fears about the economy and sent President Biden's approval rating tumbling. But according to a new Labor Department report, the consumer price index rose about 7% in December from just a year ago, marking the fastest increase since June of 1982. That's when inflation hit a 7.1%. The CPI, which measures a group of goods ranging from gasoline and healthcare to groceries and rent, jumped 0.5% in the 1-month period from November. And that is really ridiculous. Economists expected the index to show that the prices surged to 7% in December from the year-ago period and 0.4% from the previous month. Price increases were widespread, although energy prices fell 1.1% in December, just from the previous month alone. They are still up 29.3% from last year. And everybody, on average, gasoline cost 49.6% higher than it did last year. Food prices also jumped by 6.3% from the previous year. That's why it is extremely important that Congress sends out more stimulus checks soon. The good news is that the Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell has already signaled that the country has new plans to fight inflation. There are also many state governors that are looking for ways to send out checks to their residents. For instance, California is one of the many states that has its own stimulus check. It is dubbed the Golden State Stimulus. The Golden State Stimulus had payments that were sent out towards the end of last year due to a budget surplus, with the state of California then giving this out to those who needed the financial aid the most. Gavin Newsom laid out his budget proposal, and it is projected that there will be a mammoth $45.7 billion budget surplus for this year, which means the state of California is obligated to give roughly $2.6 billion of that back to taxpayers. As of right now, it's not really clear if there will be a stimulus check sent out similar to last year. Now, a large group of Democratic lawmakers have still signaled a letter asking the Biden administration to include a regular stimulus check. Lawmakers wrote in a letter, "We urge you to include recurring payments in unemployment insurance extensions to economic conditions." The latest stimulus relief plan included $1,400 stimulus checks per person and $30 in weekly unemployment benefits, plus the expanded child tax credit. The stimulus checks have progressed incrementally, while the last aid consisted of 3 types of payments that included the stimulus checks. A fourth stimulus payment can introduce more money through direct checks that reach a specific group of recipients. Thank you again for your support, everybody. If you have any more questions about this, tell me in the comments down below, and I will do my very best in answering them.
Thanks. I just want to say congratulations to you and Connect for Health on this record-breaking achievement. I'm really grateful to be here with my colleague, Senator Hickenlooper, to say a few words and celebrate the more than 198,000 Coloradans who signed up to get covered. As everybody knows, this is a challenging time for healthcare in America. But when I look back over the last 12 years, I also see a lot of progress. When we passed the Affordable Care Act in 2010, it was the biggest step forward for healthcare in America since Lyndon Johnson created Medicare and Medicaid in the 1960s. And here in Colorado, our former governor, John Hickenlooper, led the implementation of the ACA, expanding Medicaid and providing hundreds of thousands of Coloradans with health coverage, many for the first time in their lives. While the Affordable Care Act wasn't perfect, it made an enormous difference in people's lives and ended discrimination against people with pre-existing conditions. It lowered costs for millions of families, and it eliminated junk insurance plans and required every plan to meet basic quality standards. But instead of building on the ACA, there are opponents in Washington that have spent the last 12 years working to sabotage it. This couldn't come at a worse time, because when we were hit 5 million more Americans with insurance today. That's what progress looks like. But we still have profound challenges ahead. Even as we celebrate a record number of enrollments, we also reported a record number of COVID cases 2 weeks ago. Today, we're averaging in this country over 2,000 deaths a day, disproportionately from communities of color. we've seen consistently over the last 2 years. And in my view, you can draw a straight line between the country's COVID outcomes, the disparate outcomes that we've had, and our deeply unequal access to healthcare. So we have more work ahead to ensure that every Coloradan and every American has access to affordable quality health insurance. At a minimum, we should extend the enhanced tax credits from the American Rescue Plan to 2025 so we can continue to build on the progress of the ACA. That change alone would provide coverage to another 87,000 Coloradans. I'd like to go further and make these tax credits permanent. I'll say one last thing. We also need to address the shamefully high cost of prescription drugs and take on the mental and behavioral health crises in this country. And that's what I'll be working on as I head back to Washington next week. Congratulations again to Connect for Health on this tremendous success. And thank you for all you're doing for our state and for citizens that are searching for healthcare. I'll turn it back over to you, Kevin. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Bennett. Always a pleasure to hear from you. Now I get to introduce my other good friend on this call, our junior senator from Colorado. So from representing Centennial State, John Hickenlooper. Take yourself off mute, John.
It's only been what is almost 2 years. Let me reiterate.
It's because he doesn't have me at his house to remove the mute button
for health back in 2013. I can honestly say we knew there was a real need there, but now to see how many people are able to afford healthcare costs, it's remarkable. When you look at the monthly cost for if you're a working person and qualify for these subsidies, you can get healthcare for less than $10 a month. And that is a huge benefit to not just that individual, but to their families and to their extended families, to their employers, because they're now going to have a better focus on their jobs. They're going to be able to not have as much sick time away from the business. All these things are true. And Michael described also the prescription drug issues. I've been noodling around on that myself, or I should say my staff has. It's lucky to have great staff. Michael being the senior senator is my mentor. And the one thing he pushed really presented in graphic clarity right from the beginning is you're only as good as your staff. And I think we both have terrific staffs. I think it's amazing that Americans pay something on the order of 3.5 times more for their prescription drugs than if you average all the other industrial developed countries.